To those who are just coming, can you occupy at the front seats, just second or third row? Whilst Mr. Samuel is processing, I'll just want him to, he's the one who's going to call upon all his speakers. He's the one who's leading the program. So once again, I hand over the time back to Mr. Samuel. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of our meeting. Today we'll be talking about how in Rwanda we are going to do some manufacturing of vaccines and medicines locally through innovation and then business. And in my panel, I would like to call on Dr. Duran. Dr. Duran is the CEO of Med Additives, and also another panelist that will be joining me online, who is currently on the Zoom room, is Dr. Jason, whom we already spoke with yesterday. So welcome, Dr. Duran. Welcome, Dr. Jason. So with today, I think Dr. Duran would like to take us through how his company is trying to do some manufacturing and then some innovation with regards to medicines. And then, as we already heard yesterday, Dr. Duran is the president and CEO of Med Additives International Incorporations. So in this respect, high-quality life-saving medicines are out of reach for many patients in sub-Saharan Africa. And it is widely accepted that increasing local manufacturing of pharmaceutical products in sub-Saharan Africa is the only long-term and sustainable solution, despite the significant efforts by individuals, countries, and regional or continental-wide initiatives. The pharmaceutical industry in sub-Saharan Africa is growing slowly. Supply disruption caused by COVID-19 and poor access to COVID-19 vaccines in sub-Saharan Africa has brought into sharper focus the Agency for Disruptive Changes to spare local and distribute pharmaceutical manufacturing capability and capacity. So we have the portal continuous modular manufacturing technology coupled with blockchain-powered intelligent data management systems will bring disruptive changes that can lead to the rapid growth of local production of pharmaceutical products. Features such as small footprint, easy assembly on-site, flexible production output, inline sensors, ability to run 24/7, and immutable and fully trackable data with an ability to securely share data only with intended receivers using encryption key makes it possible to start small and yet produce pharmaceuticals at the international quality standards. And to scale the operations for rapid expansion, further, we will also discuss a business model that will leverage multiple strategic partnerships, which is more likely to sustain and grow than do it alone model that is currently being run in most countries. So in this resource-constrained environment, these are the kind of approaches that we want to do where people actually do a lot of partnerships to tackle most of the issues in the world. So we'd like to give Dr. Duran the opportunity to take us through how this is going to be done using the company and then resources he has at his disposal. Sure.
Good morning, everybody. This is fine. Thank you. I know many of all of you heard me yesterday. I hope you're not getting tired of listening to me. Um, I think what I want to do today is to expand on what I sort of briefly mentioned about our initiative of starting a manufacturing endeavor in East Africa. So first of all, I also want you to know that my close friend and a colleague and a partner, Jason Cross, is online. And at the end of my presentation, he is going to expand on what I say about the use of blockchain-based technology that Remedy offers that we want to integrate in our, all aspects of our manufacturing, distribution processes. So I'm going to actually ask him to make some comments, and he also will participate in discussions and question answers. And he's online. So let me just start with the first slide that sort of introduces MedAditus. Can I have the first slide, please? Yes. So what you see here is really a sort of a overarching description of who we are. We are, as I mentioned yesterday, MedAditus is a nonprofit corporation that we have founded with a mission to really focus on improving access to medicine in countries where this is particularly a problem. We are, at least for now, going to focus on in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and specifically within that East Africa. But we hope that we can expand our, not only our own operation, but we can encourage others to replicate what we want to do here. We, as you will see in my presentation throughout, we don't want to do this alone. We are, throughout our endeavor, we will be looking for strategic partners in helping us really make this dream a reality. So we heard this problem yesterday about access to medicine. You can see that there is a high, Sub-Saharan Africa, there is a high disease burden, 25% of the global disease burden. And yet, how much money we are spending on healthcare? Less than 1% of the global expenditure. Clearly, there is a disparity. We talked about fragile supply chain and the reliance of countries here on mostly import and donor programs. And this supply chain was always fragile. It was always unpredictable. But COVID-19 really brought this to almost forefront. We saw that an event that we had never predicted in a very, very short time completely disrupted supply chain across the globe. But even outside of that, and I think obviously we should focus on COVID-19, but I think we need to think about this beyond COVID-19. COVID-19 will ultimately pass, and we will forget that, these supply chains are always fragile. Any event that is not in our control really can disrupt it in a very short notice. So I think that's one of the things that we need to focus on. And finally, not only we have a problem with actually access to medicine, but as I mentioned yesterday, there is a large infiltration of substandard and falsified medicine in practically all countries, but I think wherever a country is heavily dependent on imports, that intervention by cartels to really, to substitute drugs is much, they have many more opportunities. So this is a problem that is very prevalent in this part of the world, and I think this is something we must address, as we talk about in general access to medicine. So here we see this, solutions. Again, I have mentioned this yesterday, that we want to we want to increase supply to meet the demand. And I think clearly that's an obvious sort of a conclusion. But the way we should do this is not increasing imports. The way we want to do this is by increasing local manufacturing. Again, I think we talked about this yesterday, so I want to expand on this now. And this can only be possible if we actually develop workforce that can support the industry. So these two need to go hand in hand. We can't really do one without the other. Next slide, please. So we know that we want to do this. And here I make the case for expanding local manufacturing in sub-Saharan Africa. The numbers tell the story. In a continent of 1.3 billion people, there are less than 400 pharmaceutical manufacturing units. And even among those 400, I think large number of them actually bring products from, import the products and then repackage. So in terms of true manufacturing, from starting with the ingredients, that number is even much smaller. And now we should compare that with, can you stay on that slide? We need to compare that with India, which is, and China. Each of those countries have about the same population. India has over 10,000 manufacturing units. China has 5,000 and growing. So both, and look at the physical mass. I think India, China, and US all can be embedded within the physical mass of Africa. So there is abundance of space, there is large population, and we absolutely need to go from less than 400 to thousands. That is sort of a call for action. And not only that, we can think of this as the fact that the market for manufacturers is not saturated here. There's plenty of opportunity to grow economically. Next slide, please. So here I show that not only we really have opportunity to grow in terms of the fact that numbers are low, but if you look at the pharmaceutical market, and I only focus here on East African market because we are focusing on East Africa. Yesterday, actually, you had heard about the total market for Africa, which is equally impressive in terms of the future growth. But you can see that over the last, over the last 5 years, it is almost double, and I think we see continued growth of the market. So we have, even economic really incentive to really develop more local pharmaceutical manufacturing. Next slide, please. So why is this not happening, despite all of these drivers? Well, I think yesterday I touched on this during a question and answer session, that there are barriers to starting pharmaceutical manufacturing here. It is not easy to find investment capital. There is, again, lack of adequately trained workforce. We also have some issues with infrastructure. And I would say biggest barrier, besides the ones that I just mentioned, that we need to overcome is the entrenched model of medicine supply through international donor program. We must get out of that, because that is not sustainable, and that is not in our control. That supply through donor program exists today, and it may not exist tomorrow. So these are the barriers that we must overcome, and I think they are really barriers that we can meet head on, as I mentioned yesterday, and we certainly want to do that. So Med Editors, we really want to, I just want to emphasize here that not only we want to come here and start a manufacturing, because one additional firm starting manufacturing is not going to really change the entire landscape. But I think our goal is to come here, establish manufacturing, actually show proof of concept that we can do this. We can do this well. We can produce high quality medicine. We can keep the price affordable. And we can do this in this continent, in these countries. And by doing that, we want to become trusted sort of player in pharmaceutical sector. And I think once we achieve that, then we have much bigger, at least I have much bigger ambition. I want to mobilize. I want to find ways to really scale what we have done, not just ourselves, but we would like to really bring others to really, and help them really also start manufacturing. So I think if you want to bring major change, it can happen with just one group starting a manufacturing. So I want you to see us not just as another company that is coming in to start a manufacturing, but please see us as a company that is going to come here, establish a trusting relationship, and then catalyze the change over a period of time. So to introduce you to some of the special qualities of MedAdditus, you will see as I progress that strategic partnership is a very important sort of a part of our DNA. And this was brought up by the Director General of RBC yesterday, that partnerships are important. We also believe that partnerships are not just important, they're critical. And you will see many examples of how we want to build strategic partnerships. We also want to bring cutting-edge technology in pharmaceutical manufacturing, and that is necessary to disrupt in the sort of current paradigm of local manufacturing here in this continent. And of course, we will bring experience, expertise, and a large network, and I will actually expand on this in a later part of my talk. So these will help us bring efficient use of cash by having partnerships and not doing everything ourselves. By using the technology, you will see that we can actually really bring products to market with speed and agility. And having a vast experience behind us and with us, I think we really increase our probability of success. Next slide, please. So since I'm going to be discussing the technology and partnerships and people, I just wanted to make sure that all of us are on the same page. I have just provided sort of an operational flow of what a pharmaceutical manufacturing sort of enterprise would look like. I'm sure many of you in the audience probably know this, but I thought it would be good for us to really just walk through this. So you start with the so-called API, which is active pharmaceutical ingredient in any product, as well as you need other raw materials, other excipients to really make a tablet or liquid preparation. So we clearly need an operation that would secure high quality API and raw materials. Then, of course, we had the manufacturing operations that includes not only actual manufacturing, but the quality control, the regulatory affairs, the quality assurance, and all that. And then, of course, we need warehousing, sales and marketing, and distribution of our products. And I showed you here many different buying groups. So distribution is a fairly complex process. Ultimately, through these buying groups, our goal is to really get our products to the patient. So we do not want to reinvent the wheel where expertise and operations actually exist here. This is what I mean by forming strategic partnerships. Wherever possible, I think our focus is going to be in actually establishing manufacturing operations, bringing new technology, but we will forge strategic partnerships to acquire reliable sort of supply of APIs and raw materials. We'll definitely forge partnerships with, in the sales, marketing, and distribution area. As I've mentioned, an integral sort of part of our mission is going to be workforce training programs, and not just for ourselves, but for the industry. And as you will see in the future slide, we believe that this can only be done through multi-level partnerships. And throughout these operations, as I will show you a bit later, we want to bring Remedy's experience in using blockchain and AI to create a system of data capture, management, dissemination. That is their strength, and we want to actually bring this and integrate this in all of our operations. So we are not going to bring this on as an add-on. Remedy and us, we will actually be working hand in glove from the very get-go. Next slide, please. But besides those, I think I'm just going to give you a snippet of the kind of partnerships that we already are forging, both in the US, in Europe, and also in this continent. So for example, to bring the technology, the advanced manufacturing technology, on one hand, we are working with Remedy because we will need high-quality automated data management system. But we are also working with a group, a company called Integra, and that's associated with an academic group at Rutgers University led by Dr. Fernando Muzio. They are the thought leaders in using continuous modular manufacturing that I will talk to you about. They are the thought leaders in the country. They work with Johnson & Johnson to actually bring this technology to reality. And Johnson & Johnson actually has a plant in Puerto Rico that is manufacturing products using this technology, and it's FDA approved. This is important for you to know this, because what we are going to bring here is not an experimental technology. This is a technology that already has been implemented and have produced products approved by the FDA. While we are not going to, please stay on this slide. While we are not going to focus on manufacturing API initially, because just setting up the manufacturing enterprise is a fairly large program. We don't want to really start with API also, but we do have that in our long-term plan. Not only that, but we want to, on a small scale, actually start manufacture of API in African continent through partnership. So in South Africa, there's a company called CPT Pharma. They have already been working with Institute for Medicines for All, which is another group at Virginia Commonwealth University led by Dr. Frank Gupton. This group is involved also in continuous manufacturing technology, but they are focusing on using this technology to manufacture and synthesize APIs and intermediates. So they're already doing this. In fact, they have very large US government, hundreds of millions of dollars contract from US government to actually do this for US government. So they have experience. So Medicines for All and CPT are already working on transferring some of the technology for some API from their group to CPT. So now we are forging a three-way partnership so that we will focus on some of the APIs that we need for our products that we want to plan to launch. And the goal is that Medicines for All will develop the process, transfer the technology to CPT, and CPT will produce API for us. So now it will be fully made in Africa product. Not only that, but as we grow and establish ourselves, CPT has also committed to transferring that technology to us. So at some point in the future, MedAditus and its companies will actually have entire operation from API to manufacturing product to distribution. We are also working with Drugs for Neglected Disease Initiative, and yesterday I mentioned, and today I will talk about this, that one of the product sort of class that we want to focus on is the drugs that are necessary for some of the neglected tropical diseases. And DNDi has made some remarkable progress in developing drugs for neglected diseases. The problem is they don't have the ability to manufacture. So what they do is they use contract research and they use some of the pharma companies to have them make products for them and distribute them, not just in Africa, but in Latin America and other countries. So we have been talking with DNDi, and our goal is to really forge a partnership so that all of the DNDi products, currently existing products and the products they are developing, we could become their sole manufacturer, at least initially, in sub-Saharan Africa. So these are some examples of the partnership we are already beginning to build, but as I show here, we will find partners within this region for supply chain logistics, for local, sales and marketing, and a lot of other things that we will need in terms of infrastructure. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is an example of how we should use partnership to build the workforce training programs. Really no one player can do this. Universities are training pharmacists, and I have now learned that most of the pharmacy programs within the continent, the graduates that come out of pharmacy program, they do not have the knowledge and ability to simply go into pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. I think they are more trained to be pharmacists. Now they do have a lot of basic knowledge. So what we want to do is to work with universities, but we also want to actually include pharmaceutical industry in developing some sort of a bridging program so that we can take all of the basic knowledge that they have developed and we can take the graduates and hopefully train them very rapidly to become very, very good at actually working in pharmaceutical manufacturing. But that's only one part of the workforce. We also need to have, training for people who are going to be working in a plant, the machine operators, cleaners. So we would actually, we hope to develop a series of targeted programs for the entire workforce that we need to sustain a pharmaceutical manufacturing enterprise. And we'll do this. We want to bring industry, existing companies and industry into discussions, because I think a very important part of this training program is having internship programs so that students can not only learn theoretically, but they have opportunity to come and work in different companies, for 3 to 6 months and actually get hands-on training. We also will, I think government involvement is going to be important, because this is not just a problem for industry. This is an economic development sort of issue. If we have a really good workforce, that is going to spur growth of the industry and thus economic development. So we would like to bring government into discussion. And also there are some very good international pharma organizations such as FIP, USP. They have, part of their mission is to develop and grow workforce. So we will, of course, plug into what they already know how to do instead of reinventing the wheel and get them involved in this part. So with all that, we can actually create centers of excellence so that this kind of training can occur in different parts of the continent. I'm already talking with some people in Ghana. They also have similar ideas, so this is not going to be just my effort. I'm going to try to find partners to really develop sort of multiple centers. I already had discussions even here with a faculty of medicine and health sciences, with the principal of the faculty and some of the faculty members here. So I hope that this is going to be an important part of our mission, because without a workforce, we really can't sustain industry. Now I want to come to technology. So we talked about the partnerships. Now I want to talk about the technology, which is also going to be something that we will bring to the table, which is unique. To really start us on this, I just sort of depicted here sort of a traditional batch manufacturing process. All of the steps that are involved. And as you can see, there are a number of steps that are involved. At the end of each step, you stop, you take sample, and you make sure that the the intermediate product at that point meets the standard before you go to the next one. So this is a relatively slow process. From beginning to end, to make a batch, it may take as long as 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe even longer. And at the end of all that, obviously you look at the final product, and the final product does not meet the specification, then you're going to have to go back and actually figure out what happened. So it is a process that has been in existence for decades. Finally, pharmaceutical industry over the last 10 to 15 years kind of realized that there is absolutely both opportunity and need for innovation. And several multinationals actually got together in consortium, and individually they have developed what is known as, it is called Modular Continuous Manufacturing Technology. And I want to just give you a snippet of what that should look like. Next slide, please. It's also called portable because it's relatively, has a very small footprint. So compared to what I just described, which was several steps, and for each of those steps, you have large reactors, hundreds of kilograms, maybe thousands. So you really need large area for each of those. And remember, these areas have to be prepared and run in so-called good manufacturing practices or GMP environment. So it's really not cheap to either construct or run operations when you have GMP. And so the traditional process takes very large space, thousands of square feet. Compare that to this. What I show here are two actually full production lines. So you have two production lines accommodated in just one room. The reason this has been possible is because they have miniaturized everything. They also created vertical configuration here. The one that you see on your left, that is just a traditional dry, sort of direct compaction tablet manufacturing process. So basically, the ingredients are mixed in a dry state, and they are directly fed to the tablet punch. On the left side of your of the slide, you see another configuration where if you need granulation process as a part of the manufacturing, you can also incorporate that into the continuous flow manufacturing. But the point I'm trying to make here is that this is a very compact system, and more importantly, if we can go back for a second, you can. It is a continuous process. You feed the ingredients, and they are metered in automatically, including API and excipients at the top. They get fed. They're metered in so that actually the proportions are automatically sort of adjusted, and then they go through series of mixing chambers. There are multiple mixing chambers. Very important part of this is there are actually inline sampling ports, so that as this is happening, a sample is being withdrawn, and there is also inline sensors and analytical instruments that can in a real time give you sort of the quality of the intermediates, whether you have uniformity, whether you have accurate percent of the active ingredient. What used to, in the traditional way, you had to stop it and actually send it out for an analysis. Here, this happens in real time and on the same location. So this is truly a continuous process. You are feeding the ingredients, and you are actually collecting tablets on the other side. And that can go on for as long as you want, continuously, 24/7. So the batch size or lot size can be decided by the time for which you run this continuously. You can also make a small batch by just running it for a short period of time. Here I kind of show that this, of course, we will be purchasing this machinery from European, most of the manufacturers are in Europe, but they actually make modules of this production line, and that can be built there, and it can be then sent, transported very easily, because it's not a huge machinery, it has a small footprint. And we can bring that here, and then we can assemble this on site, and of course we can get all of the regulatory sort of approvals and qualifications. We will do exactly the same thing, also bring a sort of a counterpart of this in Dr. Fernando Muzio's lab, and also qualify it there, so that some of the product development initially might happen there, and then the technology is transferred. With time, we will be bringing an entire operation here. So it's ready assembly, compact footprint, continuous production 24/7, inline sensors, real-time product release. All this really leads to much faster process, much lower waste. And I think this is how we're going to bring the price down. We are going to be able to actually speed up the sort of manufacturing, reduce some of the waste that happens in a batch process. And this is very readily scalable. That one machine, that one production line that I showed, actually can produce as many as several billion tablets a year. And of course, if you want to increase output, you can increase the capacity of the tablet punch with the same line. And if you really want to go by 5-fold and 10-fold, you can install another line. So this is going to be, in my mind, truly, it will be a groundbreaking change in manufacturing technology. It will be disruptive. And this will be the first such technology in Africa when we actually make it up and running. Next slide, please. So this is not my area of expertise. I borrowed, in fact, this slide from Jason Cross. But Jason yesterday described the sort of blockchain concept in the context of healthcare delivery and COVID testing and clinical studies. I think the same principle actually applies here, and that is that you can create and store data and manage data that is immutable. You can't make any change, though if you really do have to make change, it is completely documented, and parts of this data can be segmented and made available to regulatory agency as and when needed by using the so-called crypto key. So same principle that you described yesterday. They want to really help us integrate and apply it to manufacturing process. And by the way, the president, the CEO of Remedy, Dave Stefanich, that Jason mentioned yesterday, he's actually worked in pharmaceutical manufacturing companies in the industry. So he has hands-on experience of all of the processes, and he also is the person who is writing codes and developing this system. So we have somebody who actually has the expertise to integrate and bring this technology to our manufacturing. Again, this is not something that is theoretical. This is something that Jason and Dave can actually make it happen in real time. Next slide, please. So as I said, we want to apply this technology to our manufacturing process, our distribution process, and ultimately we would like to actually bring this technology and monitor the patient's actually medication compliance, treatment, and then outcomes. Because ultimately we want to be able to show the actual healthcare outcomes and societal outcomes of this new way of doing business. I just mentioned here all of the components of manufacturing, distribution, and treatment where this technology can really be applied. And the benefits are that you have international quality standards that we can produce, which is going to be our hallmark. Our products, our facilities, our processes are going to be at the level that will be qualified by WHO and they'll be qualified by FDA. And we want to have, we will actually, by using this ability to really share data with the regulatory agencies in real time, we can achieve fast-track regulatory approvals, which is also going to be a competitive advantage. In a distribution area, it can improve efficiency and reduce waste, and most importantly, it will protect our product from substitution by substandard and falsified products, medicines. And ultimately, we hope that by applying this all the way to the patient, we will be able to actually demonstrate the value of these technologies in improving healthcare of the patients. That's where the rubber meets the road. Until we can get there, a lot of the other things are important, but when we are able to show that our work leads to improved healthcare and better lives and saving of the lives, that's my hope and goal. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to touch on the products. Yesterday I discussed this. I'm sorry the slide is slightly jumbled, but we want to have 3 classes of products initially: neglected tropical disease products in this area, because I think we would like to see the elimination of dependence on donor program. Pediatric medicines, because as I mentioned yesterday, 40% of the population in this continent is under the age of 18. So there's large percent of the population is children, and we need to make sure that we take care of them. So by bringing these formulations, we would like to improve both efficacy and safety of treatment in children. And we know that, and this was discussed also, we have growing need and demand for treating non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular conditions, diabetes, cancer, and other diseases. So we want to focus on this. And here what I show here is our rationale for product class. We have actually picked this through a lot of analysis, and it's based on 4 most important criteria. Disease burden in this area. So we want to focus on unmet need. So we are actually we are focusing on drugs where disease burden is moderate to high in this area. We also obviously need to be realistic. Can we actually bring these drugs to market? Are there barriers to entry? Profit margin, we are going to be a business, so we want to see in a profit margin. But you will notice that we do not have a strong sign for profit margin, because we are going to be working in a non-profit sort of a philosophical underpinning. So even when we can command high profit, we would like to keep the prices of the drug as low as we possibly can. And of course, social impact. So what you will see here is that for pediatric and non-communicable disease, you have a very strong rationale, both from the perspective of disease burden. It's probably because there are not many drugs in this area, I think the barrier to entry into market is low. Clearly there's social impact, so these are the sort of no-brainers. But you can see that NTDs are not going to be easy for us because there's a donor program. We will have to find ways to really convince the governments to buy from us instead of really getting that as a donation. And that's a change that's not going to come easy, we know that. And of course we are not going to, if we are replacing a donor program, we are not going to really have any profit. We hopefully will just make this available at cost. So this is a part of our portfolio that's not going to make any money, but we hopefully will make enough money from the other products to be able to subsidize products in this area. Now I'll just very briefly talk about the experience that we bring to get this. This is right now our core team, very small, we are very agile operations. We have a chief communication officer who has a lot of experience in this field. Lauren McQuillan, who is a project manager and now beginning to act as acting COO. As you can see, has also long experience. We have started in a consulting agreement with Mr. Nazib Muhammad, who ran successfully a pharmaceutical company for Aga Khan Group in Kampala, the Kampala pharmaceutical industry. So he actually knows this space. He knows what works and what doesn't work. And he is so excited about our mission and our goals that he has agreed to work with us very closely. And he's giving us advice on the real world problems and issues and opportunities we have. And of course, we have a legal counsel who is extremely experienced in a nonprofit space, so that she will make sure that we adhere to the governance of the corporation. I've been fortunate to be able to assemble a very impressive board. I won't go through their individual accomplishments, but I'll just single out maybe 3 or 4 of them. The chair of the board, Pap Guy, actually was a CEO of IntraHealth International, and IntraHealth has been in many countries, maybe over 60, 70 countries, including many countries in Africa, building sort of a local healthcare capacity. So he has experience in doing this. And he, of course, knows Africa very well. He originally is from Senegal. He's worked in the US for the last 20 plus years. And he has agreed to be chair of the board and is very committed to our mission. Having him on my side actually is a big, a sort of major plus. We have also Ngozi Bell, who is from Nigeria. She is an entrepreneur. She is actually a boutique investment corporation focusing on investment in Africa. She knows this continent very, very well. And she also has a brilliant corporate strategist, and we already have leveraged her experience. We have Bill Sharman, who is also, like me, former dean of a pharmaceutical program in Monash University in Australia. But more importantly, Bill actually has worked in developing malaria medicines for Africa. So he has actually been there and done it in collaboration with large pharma. We also have former ambassador to Togo and a career diplomat. I think she brings a lot of wisdom because this is the first time I'm going to be working in this region, and having somebody who has had a diplomatic experience is invaluable. We have Ronald Strauss, who was a former international officer for the University of North Carolina, but more importantly, he had overseen HIV treatment and prevention programs in Malawi and Zambia and other countries. So he really knows what it takes to really put together programs. Kay is a very hard-nosed former CEO of a company, IGIHE, that she started, and ultimately she actually exited that by selling it to Pfizer. She brings a lot of real-world experience she asks very tough questions. And then Steve Hammond is from Pfizer. Steve was actually involved in developing continuous manufacturing technology. His specialty is in sensors and analytics, and having him, somebody who actually has worked in Pfizer while this technology was being developed, is a tremendous sort of a resource for us. So you can see that we have brought every individual board member actually has a role to play. And I have another board member who is coming on board January 1. But he has asked me not to announce this until he comes on board. So I will not give his name, but he has a European roots. He has a very deep connections with DNDi. He has worked in a large pharmaceutical company in Europe. So, and he also has started a company called Synexis in our area, Research Triangle Park. And developed that company to have manufacturing, R&D, and ultimately the company went to IPO. So I just want you to know that as we grow and as we come here, we will actually add to either this board or the local company that we'll create. We will, of course, add people from this region on our board, because we need people who actually help us understand and help us really do the right things in this area. Next slide. And then we have a very, very important resource. These are people who have told me that they really like this idea. They want to help us, in whatever way they can. These are people who have full-time jobs, but they want to volunteer their time. And I have never turned down a volunteer. So when they have offered their help, I think I have, over a period of time, I have formalized this. We actually have names of these people on our website. We call it a network of advisors and volunteers. We have 85 people who are on our network right now. And as you can see from here, they bring a lot of different experience from different parts of the sector. And these are all very relevant fields that will help us really as we grow. So what I want to show here is that while we are only 2 years of age, and that we work right now very lean, but behind that lean and young organization, there's a tremendous experience that is backing us up. And as we go forward, and this is what I do better than other things perhaps, and that is to find the right people and inspire and convince them to work with us. So I beware, I'm going to come to many of you and ask you to work with me as we go forward. I just want to show that while we are right now small, we have already envisioned what the organizational chart will look like in terms of functional needs. Both initially, we'll have some of these in the US, and then and of course, as we actually form a company and start operation, we will have an entire operation within Africa. And I show here country 1 and country 2. That is just to put the stake in the ground that we are not just going to start one organization, one manufacturing facility and stop there. Our goal is to scale this. And if we are successful in the first one, we will definitely expand our presence in other countries. Next slide, please. And this is just a very rough timeline. We have already accomplished all the goals that we had set for 2020, 2021. And we are now looking ahead to 2022, 23, 24. And in fact, some of these things that we are charted for 2024, we think that we can actually do in parallel, and we're going to bring them into 2023. But the goal is to really move very rapidly once we have made a decision on a country, and we are very close to really doing that. We will move very aggressively to get us up and running and start producing. Next slide. We are also, next slide please. I also want you to know that this is just an example of this, but we are going to hold ourselves accountable to the end goals. We are constantly going to check our swing, check to see whether we are actually making a difference, achieving our goals. So we are going to sort of, before we start, we want to really put this out, that what will success look like? And I've just given you some examples of kinds of things that we want to be able to achieve for us to actually feel that we have accomplished something. It's, doing, of course, ideas are great. Trying to put ideas into practice is even better. But ultimately, what matters is, are you able to produce results? And we are going to be extremely result-oriented, while of course keeping our values intact. Next slide, please. So this is what we bring to the table. We bring groundbreaking technologies. We will bring strategic partnerships and global network of experts. And we will actually, hopefully train a workforce that would be truly outstanding, not just for us, but for industry. And I hope that with this, we will make, we'll create a small delta, at least, in a space where change is much needed. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diran. Can we have another round of applause?
Thank you. going to invite Jason to see if he has some.
Exactly. So Dr. Jason is still on the line with us. Do you have any additions to add to what Dr. Dion has just said?
Sure. Can you hear me okay there?
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, wonderful. I want to make a few comments about regulatory innovation, but Samuel, you WhatsApped me earlier about some potential questions to ask, including how blockchain is being used in manufacturing and supply. And I thought before I speak about regulatory innovation, it would be helpful for the audience for me to explain that first very quickly. So again, I'm going to revisit some points that Dr. Thacker mentioned on the slide and that I presented yesterday. But with Remedy, we have a special architecture that's designed in particular for flexibility and compliance in connected health. So every data element is encrypted, and it sits either on a private blockchain network that has manages identity, has personal information, or a separate private blockchain network that has health information. And for any data event, a cryptographic key is generated for the specified data element on the identity blockchain. Another cryptographic key is generated for the targeted or requested health information on the other blockchain. And always a third cryptographic key is generated and hashed and written onto a public permissionless blockchain where what is there is immutable, can never be deleted. Again, the information's not put there. It's a hash of a cryptographic key that for any data event is linked to the identity key and the desired information about health, manufacturing, and whatever activities. This ultimately gives us the best of both blockchain and non-blockchain data technologies. Now, what features, capabilities does this give us at a practical level, right? So one is for any data element, you have the highest possible cybersecurity. Any malicious actors would need to hack multiple distributed ledgers simultaneously or within a 5 to 10 minute window, including a public blockchain at a threshold of distributed nodes that to date, no blockchain has ever been hacked that's at that threshold of being distributed. Another really important benefit, and this comes out, this plays out in various regulatory advantages, is you get finely tuned, need to know based access to information, right? Instead of having, instead of making a data set open or closed to a small group or providing a few different role-based permissions, applications can provide 1,000 different keys to 1,000 different people, each one of which gets access to 1,000 different combinations of subsets of information, none of which is so much that can be combined to provide to create a threat to privacy, confidentiality, etc. So this actually ends up simplifying real-time data reporting over batched processes, where the batching is often both a matter of technical compute and speed management and compliance and making sure that the right information is going to the right party. Another feature set benefit is immutable audit trails, including the chain of custody of the data elements themselves. So immutable audit trail, not only of whatever you have data about, who's logged into this pharma manufacturing equipment at what time, where, etc., but also who's had access to that information and who has accessed it, when, where, etc. So this architecture then empowers patients, manufacturers, employees by being able to have that immutable audit trail of what's happened, while also being able to delete information. Because the public immutable chain only has hashes of cryptographic keys. So complying with European GDPR privacy standards, and a number of African countries are adopting privacy regulations that are more modeled on the European ones, that include increasingly the right to be forgotten by patients, right? The right to delete information. The patient-specific data sits off-chain. It can be deleted there. And then on the public blockchain that's immutable, the cryptographic key is broken, so it no longer can link to anything like that. All of what I've described enhances change controls, both in the data technology system and real-world processes where the platform is applied. It's as if you have a EY or PwC or KPMG consultant or accountant next to every employee throughout the day, no matter what they're doing, right? These features ultimately enhance multi-party trust in data and in the quality of the processes through which that data is generated. At Remedy, we have a very strict quality management system for the data platform itself, which makes it a tool for digitally enforcing quality management systems and material processes and activities, whether it's a quality management system for a CGMP pharmaceutical manufacturer, a CGDP distribution network, clinical trial protocol for clinical research. All of those processes, the reliability of the workers doing things appropriately is enhanced, and the information about it is enhanced. So the ways that those change controls and quality management on our platform are designed are specifically for healthcare and life sciences standards. So when it comes to CGMP pharmaceutical standards, quite often the FDA is stricter than EU directives or ICHQ guidelines, and we design it for the highest standards. When it comes to privacy, European GDPR and country-specific standards, or for example, Germany or the Scandinavians, are the strictest in the world. And when it comes to patient privacy, it's geared towards that. So you end up having compliance by designing it for the highest compliance standards. It automates, it makes it simple to be compliant in lots, if not all, jurisdictions around the world. And for us, this is how every piece of data, whether it's in a warehouse of a distributor, it's around a reactor producing active pharmaceutical ingredients, whether it's a health worker in a clinic providing medicines to patient as standard of care, or as clinical research in a clinical trial, the data will always be of such high integrity that it meets the FDA's clinical trial standards, the standards they have for any data to be submitted for a drug or device to apply for approval. Now, another set of benefits is how the blockchain cryptography enables privacy preserving verification of information across multiple parties. And this is a very important point of growing value in the coming years, right? So because of the immutability of the public blockchain and the hashed key being generated for each data event on it, parties can have cryptographic verification of data and events without having to see underlying data or to disclose it to other parties. So wherever you have privacy or in a value chain where you got lots of parties that are separate companies, confidentiality and intellectual property reasons to be hesitant to share information, you can have coordination without having to share the underlying data. So in the blockchain space, this is called zero knowledge proof. It's knowledge, it's proof of something without having knowledge of the thing being proved. And such cryptographic verification without needing to disclose underlying data enhances accountability and controls by making it safer from a privacy perspective to provide third parties verification. In our case, pharmaceutical regulators, supply chain partners, right? So parties that you would normally not give real-time access to all the underlying information, you can have an accountability system in place where they get real-time notifications that certain things are appropriately being followed, or that a distributor can have beyond the standard certificate of analysis, additional verification cryptographically of a whole bunch of things that happen at the manufacturer without having to disclose that actually to the distributor. So there's a whole, in the coming years, such zero knowledge proofs are going to be of growing importance, especially for leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning analytics, because you can mine data across silos without the parties that have the different silos of data having to disclose all the underlying data to humans. So you can have querying across silos while maintaining confidentiality and privacy. Also, we're seeing a lot of progress on this front. You can have machine learning models train on data across silos without any humans seeing the underlying data in all those silos that the models are being trained on. And you can trust those models are being trained on that data because of this cryptographic proof that what is claimed to be there is there, all the while keeping private and confidential information undisclosed. This approach is called federated learning. It's learning across in a federated way without any human seeing everything that's under there. And with the growing value of artificial intelligence and machine learning for pharmaceuticals and healthcare, blockchain-enabled zero knowledge proof will be even more important in the next few years. All of this leads to better process quality, better and trusted data about those very processes, and importantly, it also enables quality and compliant use of that data, of the same data in many different cases, multiple uses of the same data elements. So Remedy, a couple years ago, from 2019 to 2020, we worked with the FDA on a pilot that was geared towards integrating supply chain quality management systems for specialty medicines, tracking specialty medicine biologics, particularly oncology ones, across some large health systems, the Indiana University Health System and the Wake Health System in Central North Carolina. And the idea was, let's integrate quality management system tracking with clinical real world evidence data generation. The idea being that data captured in assuring the quality of medicine, quality integrity with biologics, that the temperature thresholds are maintained, the chain of custody is being tracked across locations and so forth. That the quality management system is also at the same time creating real world evidence that meets the data integrity standards of a clinical trial. And the FDA, as of 2 years ago, will accept real world evidence for consideration in approving new drugs and devices. And so real world data can be a factor in having a cheaper, faster, smaller clinical trial design, because there's a lot of real world evidence. So biostatistically, the FDA's analysis of what's required in terms of number of patients and different factors that are considered changes now. And all of this plays into a few comments I want to make about the opportunity for the world, as well as for Africa, of the approach that MedAditus is advancing, particularly in the realm of regulatory innovation. So Dr. Thacker spoke not just about next generation manufacturing technology and next generation digital technology such as Remedy to enforce quality standards and to monitor and demonstrate to third parties that those quality standards were maintained. Again, once you can make high quality medicines, you also have to get the consumer, the patients, the health systems, the insurers. If you're going to export, you got to get regulators in other countries to trust that those are high quality medicines. So Dr. Thacker gave that overview, but he also talked about a pharmaceutical manufacturer model that is not in the business of making pills or injectables, right? They're in the business of improving health outcomes for patients. And he talked about tracking, not just across the supply chain to assure quality of the medicine, but also patient engagement and getting, helping patients adhere to dosage regimens, getting real world evidence, not just for pharmacovigilance compliance, but in order to provide the manufacturer in-market data about the real-world efficacy and safety of the products, and provide the basis for either new product innovation or modifications to these products to improve them and to improve the outcomes for the patients ultimately. With that approach, there's an opportunity for MedAditus partnered, MedAditus copycats, right? Sometimes the biggest, one of the exciting things for us about being partnered with MedAditus is their ecosystem catalytic approach. The organization wants to be a catalyst for ecosystem change, which means not just that they're going to do it all alone, not that they're just going to do it with partnerships, but when they can prove out best practices, the whole point is for others to copy it. And the goal is to improve the quality of medicine manufacturing and distribution, and improve what's the expectations in the African market and outside of Africa of the quality of medicines being made in Africa. So African regulators, with technology like Remedies, where they can get real-time visibility into processes that normally they don't have real time. Normally the FDA doesn't have real time visibility into. And additional verifications beyond what's the minimum required by regulations and standards allows them to be innovative in thinking from a risk-based model. How long do we have to keep a new product from getting into market? And in the US, with new product approvals, the FDA uses what they call a REMS, risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, as the basis for sometimes accelerating an approval for a drug that normally would have taken longer. If the company has a proactive model for monitoring and evaluating and mitigating risk once that product is out in market. So, for example, clinical trial study data could be submitted, and normally the FDA would come back and say, oh, we need 20% more participants and data until biostatistically we feel good approving this. But if you've got digital health applications that are engaging the patients, you've got a proactive model of getting information from their doctors while they're taking this medicine, et cetera. In this case, we'll approve it without that 20% extra research that may take several years. We'll approve it and we'll be able to monitor in real time, get additional efficacy and safety data. That's been happening across the board with COVID, new COVID vaccines and treatments. So that's a risk-based approach to fast tracking a new drug approval. A similar methodology, a similar approach could be applied to the risk-based analysis for new manufacturer approvals. And that's something where essentially you've got your standard processes, timelines, fees, and a regulator can say, look, you don't have to put in place all this new digital information. You don't have to share with us above the standard that the law requires. But if you choose to, if you're making high quality medicines and you're following high quality processes, and you're so proud of it that you want to give us real-time visibility into it, then from our risk analysis changes. And it's safer to get something in the market sooner. And not only is that better for accelerating approvals and getting more affordable products in the market, it accelerates, it enhances the supply chain security dynamics that Dr. Thacker spoke about. When you have supply chain disruptions and you can add additional suppliers from the African region, not having to wait a couple extra years for the appropriate approvals, but also it provides a commercial incentive for current or future manufacturers that would normally not be meeting the highest quality standards or not be disclosing it. It actually gives them a commercial incentive to improve their quality, right? And at the end of the day, you know, the Meditis vision is not just to model higher quality ways of doing things, but to work together with regulators, with payers, with patient communities to try and nudge the ecosystem towards improving quality and addressing not just the counterfeit health challenges of counterfeit medicines, but the biggest negative health impact worldwide is often of substandard medicines. These are medicines that are not counterfeit. It's not a illegal operation of replacing, you know, an active pharmaceutical ingredient with some household materials, et cetera. It's just the fact that manufacturers are not meeting global CGMP standards. They're cutting corners, or they're allowing quality to not be up to spec. And some research suggests up to 40% or more of global pharmaceutical supply. And
So
again, we need to make it in their interest to step it up.
yeah, thanks. I think we
Thank
probably
you.
should give some time for question answer now. Yeah.
All right, so Dr. Jason, thank you very much for the elaboration and then the in-depth analysis on how blockchain is actually being integrated into manufacturing and supply chain or distribution, and then also the benefits of blockchain in the manufacturing and distribution sector. I have two questions for Dr. Duran that I think the audience will be interested in, which we can take quickly, and then revert to the audience to see if they have any questions, and then we can tackle them. So I'm going to put the two in one. First, you mentioned about nonprofit, and then you mentioned about getting some profit. So I want to know how that reconciliation is going to come into. And then also, I believe the audience wants to know specifically when you are going to start your active work in Rwanda, so that all we those interested, we can prepare our CVs and then start applying.
So yeah, I think that's a very important question you ask about. I talked about both us being excuse me, us being nonprofit. Also talked about the fact that we are going to make profit, right? How does these two work together? So this is not new model. Actually, Aga Khan Group in this continent actually do exactly that. They have, of course, they are a non-profit organization and they run many for-profit companies, including in the healthcare area. So the point is that for us to actually have this pharmaceutical manufacturing enterprise and bring investment, this is not going to be an inexpensive sort of affair. We obviously need to guarantee some return on the investment of the investors. So, and of course, we want to compete with not only current other companies here, but also those exporters in Asia who are providing the products here. So we are in a competitive market. We have investors. We will run a business that will make profit. They will not make excessive profit, but will make profit. And most importantly, after we have given back to the investors, and of course have sustained the salaries and other expenses, net profit will be reinvested. We are making that as an upfront commitment that whatever money we make, we are not going to take it back, to U.S. and get people rich. We want to reinvest that money in this region. The whole idea of coming here is to really help this region. So if we make money, hopefully we can expand our operations, we can scale it, we can bring additional partners and so on. So we would create sort of a hybrid model. But we will be very accountable, we will be very transparent, so everybody would know what kind of profit we are making and how we are distributing it. You asked about the timeline. We are making very rapid progress. I think it's my goal to decide on a country perhaps before the end of this year. Now, when I decide on, let's say, either Kenya or Rwanda, that doesn't mean that we will work in one country and not in the other. I think we will try to really leverage the sort of the strengths of each of the country in spreading our operations. So our goal is to break ground in middle of next year. We are going to need this time to really bring the investors together. And while we are and then start construction of the facility. And while we are doing that, we will be doing a lot of background work in terms of the product portfolio and preparation for approvals from the regulatory agencies. Our hope is that if it is realistic, 2024, 2025, we will be launching our products.
All right. Thank you very much for the elaboration. So I would want to give an opportunity to at least two people from the audience to ask questions. Okay, so let's take it from, do you have the mic?
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your great presentation. Dino Celeste from Catalytic in South Africa. During your presentation, you mentioned that you're going to source your API from an API manufacturer in South Africa, right? We know that API accounts for almost 70% of the public price of any given medicines. So it's a big chunk of the cost. How are you going to source your API? Do you have only one API suppliers, or are you going to look at also, we know that also India is the biggest API base in the world, or will you outsource also from India? Yeah. And how will you work in terms of the custom and custom duties and all the tax when you import the API to the given country you're going to choose for manufacturing your medicines?
Right. We will, to be realistic, we will have to import API from Asia, most likely from India, for many of our products. I think the South African model is initially will be on a small number of products, maybe 2 or 3, and because we are making process improvements in synthesis, we are pretty sure we'll be able to compete with in terms of getting that very cost effective. With respect to API costs and quality and all that, we have just started to actually begin to develop contacts in India. Again, whatever we do, we are not just going to be in open market and get the cheapest one. I think what we'd like to do is to develop strategic relationships and partnerships with API manufacturers in India, so that they know what we expect in terms of quality. They will work together to minimize our the price, because again they will know the goal here is to actually reduce costs, but while economically sustainable. So and whichever country we decide on, one of the things we would like to do is to actually work out the whole supply chain of API to us in terms of import duties. Can we get relief on that, and as well as the timetable. That will be part of our what we call concession agreement or incentive agreement with the country.
All right, thank you. So we have our next question.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much for the presentation, Dr. Thacker. And I think that was Mr. Cross on the screen. I'm excited about the prospect of manufacturing on the continent. I think it was very well articulated yesterday. But my concern, or perhaps a suggestion, would be, how are we looking at including the current manufacturing environment on the continent? I think in a lot of the African countries, we do have pharmaceutical companies producing, sometimes of the same quality as the West. The other thing that I'd also like to ask is, we have a lot of traditional herbs and plants that our people are using. How can we bring technology to enhance the production so that we have local elements that we are using that we know work? But of course, like we said yesterday, the other day, using solutions and applying today's reality to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your question. I just want the audience to know, I in no way have been implying that the manufacturers who already are here are not producing good medicines. I think there are some that are producing medicine at the GMP. They are actually running their plant in a GMP condition. Not many, but some. Even those who are not running them at a strict GMP level, certainly they are producing products that are approved by regulatory agencies, so I assume that the quality is good. It's a mixed bag. There are some who are not really producing that, they're really racing to the bottom in terms of making it cheap and not necessarily keeping the quality. So it's a whole spectrum, and I'm very much aware of that. We just want to focus on us. We want to really, our goal, as Jason and I mentioned, our goal is to build and operate, plant and produce products that would be approvable, qualified by WHO, like international agencies. And we will produce a quality that if FDA were to audit us, they would pass us. That's our goal, which really would exceed really the quality or the stringency that is being used in this country so far, in this continent. About a question about leveraging the local knowledge of natural medicines produced from natural products. I did not bring that up, but I'm glad you asked that question. I'm focusing right now on manufacturing because our stage one or phase one of our start is to really start making medicines here. But as we establish ourselves, of course, R&D is actually my strength. Manufacturing is something I'm learning. R&D is something that I've done all my life. And so we will absolutely, over a period of time, once we have established and we have running manufacturing operations, our goal is to then develop new products. And we would like to develop new products here from the resources here and obviously for diseases that are relevant here. So R&D will become a very important part of our operation. But if I have to really look at timeline, first 5 years, set up and get the manufacturing going. Next 5 years, scale it, but also develop R&D operations.
Awesome. So thank you very much for the elaboration. First we are starting with manufacturing, then we are moving on to drug discovery using our natural plants. So I would just want to mention my takeaway from this meeting that we've had, and then I'll take some takeaway from you, and then if Dr. Jason is online. So practically, I think Africa, one of our biggest challenges is drug imitation and fake medication into the African market. I have done a lot of work in the hospital space and then manufacturing space. I've done some work in the community space as well. And then one of the major feedback we get is how the FDA is so concerned about fake medications infiltrating into the market, and then a lot of product recalls also being made on certain batches of medicines. But listening to you and then the incorporation from Dr. Jason, it looks like there's a very robust process that is being put in place to make sure, one, they are not going to, drugs fakers are not going to find it very easy to imitate your products, thereby getting, separate products from yours into the market that are fake. I also see that you are putting in a lot of redundancy processes to make sure that you are following good manufacturing practices, cumulative good manufacturing practices to be specific. You are going to follow good distribution practices, and these are the two ways to make sure that your drugs are not being faked into the system. I also see the team that you actually have under your umbrella, and it is a very formidable team that I'm pretty sure that all of you have that reputation that you want to maintain, therefore you manufacture the good quality drugs for Africa. I like the fact you also mentioned about the disparity between the population in Africa and then the pharma industry or manufacturers in Africa. There's a huge disparity, and then it excites me the fact that you are trying in your own way to bridge that gap, comparing to what is actually happening in India, China, and the USA. So these are my takeaways, and then from our own way, however we can to help bridge this gap and then improve health outcomes or efficacious medicines, we'll also try to contribute in that respect. So with this, I would like to take your last words, Dr. Adrian.
Thank you very much for that summary of the highlights or major points. Again, I want to just end by, first of all, thanking you all for your attention and one-on-one conversation. Many of you actually are very supportive of this effort. So, of course, I need lots of support from here. We will be building this from ground up, and it will be through involvement of course, existing infrastructure, partnerships, people. So in the next few months to a year, we will be looking for people who would like to work with us. I'll welcome any conversation from anybody who wants to really begin to have this conversation with us, working with us. I will be spending a lot more time in the coming months and years, because I can't do this from the US. I have to really be here. So I already made 2 trips in the last 3 months. But as we go forward, I'll be spending weeks and months at a time as we get more and more involved here. So you will see me a lot. You'll hear from me a lot. And I would like to hear from you all a lot. Because for me, I'm learning. I don't really have all the answers. I'm coming with some assumptions, and I want to make sure that I learn a lot from the feedback that you provide, just like the questions about natural product. Can we really develop products from the local sources, of course. So the more I learn and listen, I think the better we can really serve the people. Just one last thing. My presentation and Jason's presentation is on a flash drive. I have the flash drives here in the front place so anybody who wants a copy, you can just pick up a flash drive, and keep with you. I think there may be enough, but if you run out, there is also some more at the Med Editor's booth. So I want to end by just again thanking you all for your patience and for listening and for giving feedback. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you, the audience, for your rapt attention. So I will call on the Master of Ceremony, Walter, if he's around. Is Walter around? Okay, so but then this is the end of today's session for the plenary. So I think the next session would be on mental health and addiction at the M3. Professor Stephen would be taking that. Thank you.
To the stage. Dr. Jean Damascene is one of the big specialists in Rwanda in mental health in general. He did his master's in public health in Nancy, France, and his PhD in mental health nursing in KwaZulu-Natal. He works for over 10 years at the Rwanda Biomedical Center, and he's one of the first professional people in mental health that I met when I started working here. I think he's an inspiration to many. I think I actually hardly need to introduce him, as I'm sure many of you already know Dr. Damascene. Dr. Damascene will give us an overview of the results of the mental health survey. And so I'm really curious and interested in this presentation. Dr. Jean Damascene.
Thank you very much. As the Professor Steve said, we used to say mental health is a big challenge, and my presentation will focus on the study which was conducted in 2018 to show the prevalence of mental disorder. But you may know that mental health cannot be defined by mental disorder. It's more than that. And we normally say there is no health without mental health. Can you show the slide quickly? And what is the problem? So, I think technology can't limit. As I said, this presentation will be focused on the Rwanda Mental Health Survey, which was conducted and disseminated in 2018. As Steve said, we used a sample of 19 in the general population and 1,000 in a group of genocide survivors, which is considered as a vulnerable group for mental health. And that one, which make more than 20,000 of people who were involved in that study. So the first thing that we did, we conducted that study in collaboration with then we conducted in two groups, and the group one was the general population, which was the big one, And the study was conducted in all country, meaning all district of Rwanda. And then normally we check using MINI, which is a international neuropsychiatric interview based on DSM-5 and the ICD as the instrument. Next. Just I have to recognize, acknowledge those people who participated, all who helped to have this achievement, especially the study, as I said, was conducted by RBC in collaboration with Inabel, University of Rwanda, and the other partners. Two groups, our sample size, as I said, is more than 20,000 of individuals using two groups, the general population and the group of genocide survivors. Next. As I said, the major instrument is the MINI, which is a MINI International Neuropsychiatric Interview, developed from DSM-5 and ICD, which can be used in a clinical area, but also in a research purpose. Next. The next slide. Why? The next slide will show you the prevalence. In fact, as you can see, we concentrated on major common mental disorders. The first one, the most prevalent in Rwanda, is depression, following by PTSD and panic disorder and other related disorders. Here we check the combined mental disorder, and we found that in the general population, more than 20% of people are having mental disorder, meaning 1 in 5 people we found that is having one or more mental disorder. The female are most affected, as you can see. Next. For this is for urban and rural area. In fact, the urban area is most affected compared to rural area in terms of mental disorder. Next. This shows you according to education, we found that the less educated people are likely to have mental disorder, according to the study, according to these findings. Next. We also wanted to know the distribution according to the district of Rwanda. As you can see, the most affected, the most prevalent is in Gasabo. Gasabo, where we are now, is in Gasabo, with 36% of people. It followed by Huye, then Gisagara, then it confirmed that most of affected districts are urban districts. This is people who are aware of where to seek help. In fact, you can see that 38% they know where the 62% they know where to seek help. But you will see the following. Unfortunately, few of them, they use those services. Next. Next, you can see people who are affected by mental disorder, even they know where to seek help, even they know the service. You can see only 5% are using service available. This is a main challenge. We have a big number of people affected. We have enough people who know where to seek help, but we still have people who don't come to our service to seek services. This is a big challenge. Now, the few people who use help, who use our facilities, they still going to the facility. The others, they are in a community, they seek help to community health workers. But we have those who are still going to traditional healers, but also we have those who are kept with religion healers. It's still also a big challenge. Next. For genocide survivor, the most disorder is major depression, which is at 35%, followed by PTSD and panic disorder. Next. When you see combine the disorder in this type of population, we found that more than half were having mental disorder, meaning 1 in 2 genocide survivor is having mental disorder. Challenge in this kind of population. The female are most affected as in the general population. Next. This is the distribution by province. In fact, most of people affected are found in southern province, then following by city of Kigali, then by eastern province. The last one is the northern province. Maybe we need another more than one study, mostly qualitative, to explain this. Next. When it comes to education, also as the indigenous population, less educated are showing sign or symptom of mental disorder, while those who are educated, they are they are less are likely to have a mental disorder. Next. When it comes to awareness for this kind of a population, is 76% they know where to seek help. Again, most of those who know, they know they can go to those services, but you will be surprised that also few of them, they are using our existing services. Next. Most of those who know or who are affected, only 14% are using existing services. We don't know, but the existing, they are not used as we want. In this population, we wanted, this slide is showing the comparison between those two groups. And you can see the blue are the group of genocide survivors are much affected compared to the general population. The next. A few minutes that I have been given to discuss this, you can see mental health is one of the health challenges in Rwanda, and you have seen that there is a high prevalence of mental disorder, and we think it is a time to have a coordinated action or a collaboration to deal with those issues. Next, and I think the last one. This study have provided many recommendations, but the important one is to promote the need of equality for mental health and the recognition of the link between mental and the physical health. Most of the time, this combination, this link is not recognized. Also, we need a kind of a comprehensive approach which will take promotion through prevention, treatment, long-term care, and recovery from mental disorder. Most of our technique, they still providing just a reactive treatment, but we still need long-term, especially within the community, to avoid the relapse and to reduce the hospitalizations. Also, we need to reinforce the capacity of our services, especially, as I said, especially in a community level, to improve mental health, not mental disorder. Thank you very much for this opportunity to discuss with you the issue of mental health and how we found the problematic of mental disorder in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean Damascene, for this wonderful presentation and also for the important work that you do at RBC. Thank you so We now go to the next speaker. Maybe just a short comment. So after this, after the 4 speakers, we'll have a short Q&A session. So that will be the moment in which we can address some more questions to Dr. Jean Damascene, to the other speakers. Our next speaker is Dr. James Gamille. He holds a PhD in environmental health from 2017, and he also holds a Bachelor of Hospitality Management and Master of Occupation and Environmental Health degrees. So you understand why I'm reading it, because I didn't manage to remember all the titles. Currently, he has 7 years of professional experience in university teaching, and he has over 13 research peer-reviewed publications, both in local and international journals. His current interest of research is neuropsychology of addiction, and he's involved in several ongoing research projects. So, Dr. James, please, if we can invite you, Dr. James will talk to us about the role of NGOs in fighting addiction in Rwanda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for providing this opportunity to discuss or to show you the impact of NGO in fighting against addiction in Rwanda. I think from the previous presenter, they were talking about, first with Professor Tucker, talking about the issue of pharmaceutical. Currently, we are even having problem of using some of the product illegally, because not only because we now the policy against illicit drugs and even like cannabis, because now police is somehow strong in that. Now they have twisted, instead of using cannabis, now they are easily getting medicine, and which is affecting their health today. So here in Rwanda, especially in Kigali, you'll find that in most of the pharmacies, it's easy to get some of the drugs, and which is act in a similar way like cannabis. I think the presenter can, you can just, please. Yeah. According to Ngamije and Yadufashije, drug abuse among the youth in Rwanda is a public health concern and a family challenges. This is an article that has been published in 2016. In his PhD dissertation on PAC, which is Parent-Adolescent Communication, a training program by Immutable Foundation, Ngamije found that 6 to 10 out of 10 of young people decide to abstain from drug use just because of training received. So this PAC, Parent-Adolescent Communication, was done, and during that time, we had to assess young people before they entered into training and after also training. So after training, they deliberately said that they were drug abusers, and they accepted that now they wanted to change. So you understand the impact of training. The aim of this presentation was to explore the role of NGO in addiction prevention in Rwanda. Specifically, the study aimed to answer the following question: what activities and service does Rwanda Youth Impact, which is our case study, provide to support government in awareness and prevention of addiction in Rwanda? The second question was, what challenges is Rwanda confronted with its execution, Rwanda Youth Impact confronted with its execution of its role? Next. Yeah, currently Rwanda Youth Impact activities cover the following fields. I think it's not this one. Can you please? There is another one that I gave, but anyway, we can just continue. There is another one that I gave you on your email. Did you find it, please? Good. Yeah. So I wanted just to ask, just to introduce what is Rwanda Youth Impact. Rwanda Youth Impact is as a local NGO, but with partnership with Green Crescent, which means it is under the umbrella of Green Crescent. So Green Crescent is an NGO of Turkey, but covering or having other NGOs in different countries. Currently now they have 80 countries. Yeah, as they will be presenting, the country representative is Mrs. Usman, the CEO of Be Still Investment, and the vice president is Dr. Jean, the CEO of Croix-Decide. Yeah, as I said, is an organization working with youth and society of Rwanda in fight against illicit drugs and addiction. In this year, this NGO has been accepted as a new member of ECOSOC. ECOSOC is a commissioner of, normally in a brief it's called UN Economic and Social Council, which is part of United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. So it started in last year in 2020, but because of what they have done already, UN have accepted this NGO to be part of other members. So it's a great achievement because I don't know so far, I don't know other NGO that has been accepted in that line. So I was, the way that I was telling you, the president is Mrs. Memory Usman, CEO and the founder of Be Still Investment. Vice president is Dr. Nyirinkwaya Jean. Other members, Mr. Usman, Dr. Ngamije, Dr. Odas, Dr. Alan, Dr. Anita, and I think other members also are coming. Next. Yeah, activities. Currently, Rwanda Youth Impact activities cover the following fields: tobacco addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling addiction, and technology addiction. All these problems are problems that are facing our population, not only in the urban area, but also in rural areas. Next. Yeah, the current activities, we have cooperation. We started by cooperating with different institutions to share what we have. But currently, the one that is now working with us daily is RBC, the Department of Psychology. I think the next presenter is the one whom we started now cooperate. Publicity and awareness. So even the schools also, we started seeing some schools, and we started even providing masks to the students. And while we are providing that, then we started also just introducing them the program called Catching Them Young, which is a new program and which we know that can help, because we have found that really to fight against drugs while people have already used drugs is somewhat difficult than prevention. That's why we try to work with the schools. Youth centers also through Ministry of Education. In each district there are some youth centers. So we started also cooperating with the youth centers. Prevention activities. A communication campaign last year, because we have been privileged to have different sport activities, especially Afrobasket. So during Afrobasket, because we wanted now to catch them where they are, during the session of sports of Afrobasket, we used a communication where our message were passing through TV, especially when they were now in the time when they had to just to change. So in that time, they were passing our messages. So prevention activities is where now we are focusing too much, especially in the program called TBM. So being a member of Green Crescent, Rwanda Youth in collaboration with RBC, as I said before, I aim to play a significant role by completing government's effort in prevention of addiction among vulnerable groups through TBM training program. The BEX prevention program developed by Turkey Green Crescent among task force in 30 districts and district hospitals. As we well known, from all these districts, we have task force that has been also developed by RBC. So this task force, mainly they are there to just fight against drugs, but they need capacity building. They are not aware exactly what's drugs. Because I think it will be also another research where they have to know, to research and see if really they understand what is drugs. Or because even most of the people today, they are still seeing substance use disorder as not as a disease, but as a behavior risk only. So these people need also to be trained. Next. So also with that project that we have with RBC, we were seeing that really even the hospitals or health workers, they need also such kind of training. So TBM aimed at raising the awareness of society as a whole, but primarily that the children, the youngsters, for various forms of addiction, including addiction for tobacco, drug, and technology. In total, TBM comprised 18 modules addressing preschool, primary school, secondary school, high school, children, pupils, as well as adults, such as in the field and healthy living. So you understand that having the capacity and having that chance of getting already modules like that, and just saying without sharing with the people in need, it will be another problem. By that now we are collaborating also with the Ministry of Education through REB, so that with cooperation with the universities, especially in the line of health, mental health, we can see from these modules how we can apply it in Rwanda based on the culture of our citizens. Next. Thus, Rwanda Youth Impact in collaboration with RBC, the number of the members of volunteers and set up various communities in order to involve all sectors of society in the fight against addiction. Which means we can't work alone. We need to work with the youth, we want to work with the women to tackle the problem that affects them. Because before we think that it's not necessarily that drug has to be tackled through women, but we are now having also rehabilitation center for women, because now it's also a problem that is affecting women. This may include women's committees and the youth committee by engaging them in addressing those aspects of addiction that specifically affect them. Yeah. Another area is research. Currently, during the COVID, we didn't sit, but our NGO encouraged some of the researchers to provide or to make research on drug abuse and COVID-19. How COVID-19 is affecting drug abuse. Continue. Yeah, where to get fund? We found that we have to get fund by either by national authorities, by international organization, or through donation. Next. But we can, just the second question, we can't just go without mentioning the main challenges where which means the two main challenges identified including limited qualified staff and the lack of financial support. That's personnel who work with these NGOs are engaged in activities as volunteers because we don't have funders who can fund the workers. And this has also a significant impact, a negative impact on the overall output of the NGO. Conclusion, there is a need for mental health related government agencies to support the role of NGOs such as Rwanda Youth Impact and for mutually beneficial collaboration to improve and advance their agenda and effort. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope that we'll be having many questions as we will be having time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. James. And indeed, I think as we said before, and if we talk about partnerships, we need different actors from social society, I'm saying it wrong, civil society, and but also the private sector, government, academia. So it's really this ecosystem that can help us to deal with this, with the problems that are existing now and the ones that are ahead of us. It is my pleasure now to introduce you to the next speaker, Dinamo Ndashya-Yisenga, who will be using the same data that Dr. Jean Damascene has shared with us, but looking more deeply and having made a deeper analysis related to addiction and drug abuse. Dinamo works at the Rwanda Biomedical Center. He's the Director of Management of Alcohol and Drug Use Disorders. He holds a bachelor degree and master's in public health, and he started working at RBC in 2015, especially focusing on designing, planning, and implementing the national strategies to fight against drug abuse in Rwanda, and with a specific focus on children and adolescents. And so he's responsible for implementing these different programs and works together with many partners, including faith-based organizations, schools, youth-friendly centers, and community hubs. He works also through RBC collaboratively with the National Rehabilitation Services to prevent drug abuse among delinquents and other vulnerable groups. So Dinamo, if you please. Looking forward to the presentation. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm happy to be with you, especially sharing our experiences and other findings related to our investigations. But of course, this investigation is work-related, and we'll be focusing on two variables, depression and alcohol use disorder, especially in young people from 14 to 30 years. So my presentation is entitled Prevalence and Comorbidity of Depression and Alcohol Use Disorder among Youth. You don't find it? So if I try to use this small time, no, this not. If I take this opportunity, is that, like previous presentations well done, mental health and substance to alcohol and addictions are interrelated. As previous presentations well done, you find that there is no a big difference between mental health and addiction to substances. That's why the government of Rwanda, through Rwanda Biomedical Center, we are using our efforts to make sure that young people are supported through prevention programs, and of course, this kind of multifactorial collaboration between different layers and stakeholders and partners. Like you know, up to date, we are just putting our effort to make sure that all policies and guidelines are supporting our young people against, are preventing our young people to be addicted from substances, including alcohol. If you don't find it, it is called prevalence and comorbidity. Is it? So maybe as long as there will be a solving issue for technical, I think that all of you know that substance abuse in Rwanda is not a new issue. It dates from the time. Like the first presentation whereby Dr. Damascene was precising, Rwanda, we have just experienced the genocide perpetrated against Tutsi, whereby the hope, whereby the living spirit was lost. So finding these kind of consequences may be related to this tragedy is not only affecting physical health, but also mental health. And of course, it is I was talking about it. So you see that the more people are affected, they are not only affected physically, but also they are affected their mental health, whereby you will also find some negative consequences resulting from this tragedy. It can be even transmitted from one generation to another. That's why after 27 years, you find that some people are just living emotional problems and trauma. So if I come back on my presentation, I was saying that from 2016, the World Health Organization said that 3.5 of all deaths are related to alcohol use disorders. Then harmful use of alcohol resulted also in disability adjusted life years at the scale of 5.1%. Then Wondermental survey found that depression among people was standing at 12%, while alcohol use disorder was standing at 1.6%. Then the comorbidity of major depressive episodes with alcohol use disorder was standing at 5%. Then through Wondermental survey, the Ministry of Health has classified the alcohol use disorder at 4th place of leading fatal and disability factor in Rwanda. Then depression occupies 3rd place among 10 causing year life lost among Rwandese. Then the problem is that depression was found among people with low education level at 16%. Then the problem also is that people with the comorbidity of depression and alcohol use disorder do not comply with the appropriate treatment. Then something to have notice also is that more than half of Rwandan population is young people under 18 years. Next. In order to conduct this survey, this investigation, the general objective was to investigate the prevalence and risk factors of alcohol use disorder and its comorbidity among young people, its comorbidity with depression among young people. Then, specifically, we wanted to determine the prevalence of alcohol use disorder among young people in Rwanda, the prevalence of depression, but also to assess the comorbidity and confounding factors of depression and alcohol use disorder among young people. Next. Next, please. We wanted to see, like I was saying, next, please. Next. The method we used, this is a cross-sectional study design, using, of course, Wondermental survey data. The participants, we have selected only those aged between 14 and 30 years. Then our sample was more than 80,000, like you see. The main instrument used was a mini international neuropsychiatric interview for DSM-5. Then the variables were were comorbidity of depression and alcohol use disorder, but independent variable was depression. Next, please. Next. The social demographic characteristics of our population. Most of our participants were male, standing at 58%. Most of them will be coming from rural areas at 83%. Then the education, you see that our participants, most of them were having a low education level, whereby they were in primary school, standing at 57%. Most of them were never married, standing at 65%. Next, please. The employment status of our participants, they were under age of labor force, standing at 59%. Most of them were Christian, standing at 95%. Then socio-economical category, most of them were poor, standing in category 2 and 3. Next, please. But when we see the findings, one of our findings is that young people aging between 14 and 30 years, 4% were suffering from addiction to alcohol. Next, please. While the prevalence of depression is at 16.7% of our participants, and these two figures, you see that how much our young people are affected are affected by both conditions, depression and alcohol use disorder. Like you see, today we are fighting. We are doing something like prevention mechanisms. We are introducing different strategies toward other conditions. But when it comes to mental health and addiction problem, I don't see if we can just accept that those young people standing at 16% of Rwandan people aging 14 to 30 years are suffering from depression. This is a great figure so that more efforts can be used. Next, please. When we go to the comorbidity of both conditions, depression and alcohol use disorder, you find that 23% of young Rwandans are suffering from the concurrence of both conditions. So I don't know if we can just accept it to sleep and to do something else instead of maybe focusing on these figures. So we saw that the variable sex, the variable age category, and the place of residence was linked to the comorbidity of depression and alcohol use disorder. But those who are also under age of work or maybe are jobless are more suffering than others. And those who are in socio-economical conditions, in poor socio-economical conditions, they are significantly associated with the comorbidity of these conditions. But getting married or not is not influencing our variables. Next, please. Like I was saying, it's the same. whereby a variable sex, age, and educational level was linked to the comorbidity with an odd ratio of 0.2, which is strongly significant. And also with the category, or what is called socioeconomic category of Rwandan people, are linked also to the development of comorbidity of the conditions under studying. Next, please. With those figures standing at respectively from alcohol use disorder and depression, you see that those figures are high. But in comparison with the previous studies, like the one conducted in 2015 by Professor Darius, you find that there is an increase of depression, but also a decline in alcohol use disorder, whereby the previous studies, like the one of University of Rwanda and the Minister of Youth, you see that the alcohol use disorder has decreased from 6.7 to 4.6. But the issue of comorbidity it's a big challenge, whereby our Rwandan people are standing at 23.1. But when you consider sex was linked to the development of these conditions, socioeconomic, education, and so on. So there is an interrelation between depression and alcohol use disorder. Of course, it's one of and vice versa. But a high prevalence of depressed young Rwandan people among alcohol use disorder calls more attention to both clinicians and policymakers to take actions. Next. Like recommendations. Looking at the figures mentioned above and the other explanations provided in the text, we were calling policymakers to adopt strategies addressing depression and alcohol use disorder among young people in Rwanda. Then the government, through collaborative efforts, were called to organize several awareness campaigns regarding those conditions. Then the government were called to find out employment strategies to facilitate employment of young people from rural areas. Then clinicians to conduct a professional screening addressing both depression and alcohol use disorder. Then to take actions toward determinants of depression and alcohol use disorder as well as their comorbidity. Then I have been recommending researchers to explore more determinants and strategies to reduce depression and harmful use of alcohol. So I think that more information can be found just through the literature and other documents. But to conclude, I have been focusing on young people after finding that many figures, many data from maybe rehabilitation services, from the Ministry of Health, from other collaboration organs, were saying that young people are more struggling with the issue of substance abuse, especially on alcohol. That's why I was also interested to conduct this kind of investigation and make sure that my findings will be maybe recommending some policymakers, NGOs like Rwanda Youth Impact, like others, to make sure that our efforts are put together and to tackle the issue of drug abuse and addiction in our country. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dinamo. I think the work of Dinamo really shows the importance of, once you collect such big data as RBC has been doing with the mental health survey, the importance of digging in this data, looking at more variables and exploring them more deeply. I think there is still an enormous set of data that is available. So it's a call, I guess, to the public. If you are interested in getting to this data set, I think there is always opportunity to work with RBC and work with Doug, Dr. Damasen and the team to look at specific variables and really make optimal use of this enormous data set that's available. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to our final speakers, who did a study on drug abuse, prevalence of drug abuse in 7 districts and the relation to gender-based violence. In 7 districts, the study was conducted by Professor Darius Gishoma, sponsored by Enable, and let me introduce the speakers. The first speaker, I was also part of that study, I'm sorry. I was trying to see how to formulate it. Let me first introduce the first speaker, Professor Darius Gishoma. I think if you work in mental health in Rwanda, I think automatically you will know Professor Gishoma. He has done extensive work, especially on trauma with genocide survivors. He's currently the president for, it's not NCC anymore, Darius, you'll correct me when you're on the stage, for National Commission for Children, and he's an extremely active researcher, also working closely with ABC. He will be joined by François Regis Habarugira, who is a PhD candidate in social science, and he works as a national technical specialist for the Barame project, which is a project run by Enable on the sexual and reproductive health in 7 districts in Rwanda. So please, both speakers, I welcome you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. It's our honor, me and Professor Darius, to present to you the findings from the study we conducted, as it said, in 7 districts of intervention of Barame project, which is, of course, another project supporting 7 districts of Rwanda in maternal, sexual and reproductive health services, with, of course, linking drug and substance abuse to the sexual and reproductive health. Next, the presentation outlines, we will do a general introduction and discuss a bit about methodology. This will be the first part of the presentation, which I'm going myself to do. Then the second part of findings and the recommendations will be done by Dr. Darius, who was also part of the study. As we said, and most of our speakers said, the young people represent a big proportion of the global population, and it is observed by most of the researchers that the drug and substance use has a peak of use between 18 and 25 years old, which is generally the young population. And in Rwanda, the young population represents more than 60% of the population, which is a big proportion of the Rwandan community. And that's why, next slide, please. And that's why we said that if we address the challenges that young people are facing, we are greatly contributing to the national development, and knowing that the sexual and reproductive health is a pillar on that agenda. Next. The study, as we said, has the objective of determining the prevalence of substance and drug use and abuse among adolescents in the 7 districts of Rwanda, which are namely Nyarugenge in Kigali, Gachenje and Rulindo in the northern, Gisagara in the south of Rwanda, Karongi, Nyamasheke and Rusizi in the western zone. We had also specifically to assess the prevalence of drug and substance abuse, to identify the main types of drug used by the adolescent. We also had to determine determinant, especially social determinant of drug use among community, and then draw the relationship between the substance use and sexual and reproductive health in the 7 districts. Next. The study, next please. The study was a cross-sectional analysis where we had to sample 336,000 respondents through the 3 stages of selection, where the village constituted the primary sampling unit. Then from there, we selected how a randomly household to constitute the sample. And then from the household selected, we randomly selected young people between 13 and 24 years to be part of the study. Next. Yeah, this I have said already. You can continue. Continue. Then we had, as I said, we had to analyze, you continue please. You had to analyze the following indicators. We tried to see social demographic information. We also tried to look into individual, family, and community determinant. Then we analyzed the sexual and reproductive health relationship. We also look into the linkage between the substance use and gender-based violence. Then we looked into mental health and distress among adolescents, linked to drug use and substance use and misuse. Continue. Before we did data collection, we had got an ethic approval from Rwanda National Ethics Committee. Then we went to field where we used the computer-assisted personal interview. Then we analyzed data using descriptive techniques, and bivariate and multivariate were used to estimate the odds relation of having engaged in substance use behavior. This was the methodology we went through, and I would call upon Dr. Darius to present your findings.
Thank you so much, Francois, for the background and methodology. I will start by saying that it was a pleasure and a privilege to work with, to be part of this collaboration from ENABER, RBC, and University of Rwanda. And I think it was an experience that through which we ran the roads and that set important reasons for further intervention. I'll continue discussing briefly results we got from this study. In terms of sample, in every district we had at least 300 participants, and in Karongi it was in proportion to village and number of young people. In total we had 3,300 young people aged 13 to 24. With a proportion of male 60% and 40% for female. And the reason is that when we went to household, most of the time girls were busy in different activities or out of school, or household, and the sample was 11% representing urban, and the rest was next. Francois explained that we wish to look at substance, licit substance and illicit, mainly substance, looking at the use, misuse, and when it become a disorder. So we asked a set of questions, and the first question was to know if the youth we found at home have ever used the substance. And it was, the first response we got is that 43% were totally abstinent. They never used alcohol, while 56% have attempted at least once in their life, what is called lifetime prevalence. We later asked them if they used alcohol for the last year, 40%. If they used alcohol for the past month, 30%. And it is in green for purpose because that's not an issue to have to use alcohol. Problems start when it becomes a problematic use. Adolescents drink less frequent, or young people, but sometimes they take heavy quantities, and it is called binge drinking. And it was assessed asking youth if it happened to drink 3 to 4, 5 drinks in a row in a period of 3 hours, which gives like 0.8 gram per deciliter. So it affects youth. That was the variable of interest to know if there is a problematic use. And we found that 15% among the 3,000 youth we asked had that problematic use of alcohol. I think a few years back before COVID, we had situation here near supermarket when we have youth taking a lot of alcohol. And before he moved to the next slide, that binge drinking is a problematic, but the most problematic issue, the previous slide, please, I think. We asked also questions related to disorder. Talking about disorder, it means a regular use where someone becomes dependent or can have withdrawal symptoms. So we had like 11 criteria to assess, and 0.5 had a problematic use of, I think we are having a problem with the slides. If it is possible to come back on the previous slide related to alcohol. Yes. The previous one. Yeah. So it was 3.6% of youth who had a disorder because they are looking at 11 criteria they were having that requires a treatment. The next slide. We also looked at tobacco use. Something is, I think it is becoming difficult to present why the slide is different from what we are intending to say. There is a slide related to tobacco, as Stefan highlighted. One of the conclusion we had is that majority of youth never used tobacco, 95%, which is something I think very good for Rwanda. And it was a marginal proportion, 0.5, that had a problematic use of tobacco, meaning like 2 packs or more per month. The next slide look at illicit drugs. For illicit drugs, we looked at cannabis, heroin, cocaine, and local substances. We found that the most used illicit drug is cannabis, whereby 9% used at least once, 6 past month, and we had 5 point something that were using currently at the time of the study substances. And those with disorder, it was 1.5%, meaning that they used cannabis 5 times during the month. And it's also good to know that severe narcotic drugs such as heroin, cocaine was used with a marginal proportion, something like 0.2%. And the costs has probably something to do with this, because a cannabis ball costs 500 to 1,000 francs on the Rwandan market, while heroin costs 1 gram is 50,000 Rwandan francs, and cocaine is 150,000 Rwandan francs. So cocaine is very low. Heroin 0 point something percent, and but cannabis 5 point something percent were using cannabis at the time we did the study. The next slide. We also asked questions to explore the age of onset when they started to use. It appeared that alcohol, I forgot to mention that we also found youth using plants. There is one common known as Ruiziringa. They call it transizwazo. It's an arsinogen plant because when they take it, they have euphoria, but also some hallucination. So alcohol the average year they start in 15, heroin, cannabis 16, heroin average is 17, and cocaine is also around 17. So if we plan preventive intervention, we need to start earlier, around adolescent period, because that's the average time that they start to use substances. The next slide is now becoming better. We also looked at potential determinants of use. We looked at individual factors, family, community, and for alcohol misuse, being aged above 18, having a family death of the caregiver, orphans, a family history of alcohol use. So some youth, there are some who say that they can't remember when they started because it was something that was happening in the family. And being youth that have dropped school, they were mainly using it. I think the color is not showing where, the red color is not showing where the odd ratio. The next slide. We also looked at determinants of illicit drugs, and again, we're looking at the same factors. Those who were living in family in conflict had higher odd ratio. Family with history of alcohol, those suspended from school, and those who responded that it was easy to get substance in the community. The next slide. We also, as Dynamo said, we wanted to know if using heavy drugs is linked to to mental health issues, looking at depression, suicidality, and generalized anxiety, and we found that there were a link between the use of substances and depression, meaning like the risk is 4 times among youth having a mental problem. The next slide. Most importantly, we also explored sexual and reproductive health variables to see if the use of alcohol and substance has any link with social and reproductive health, sexual reproductive variables. And the study concluded that youth using alcohol or substances had higher risk of having had sexual relation in the past 12 months, or having had unprotected sex, or having been pregnant, having ever had someone trying to touch their sexual organ without their consent. So it looked like addressing sexual and reproductive health variables requires also to look deep into the use of alcohol and the substances. The next slide, probably heading to the conclusion. For the study we conducted, we asked questions through interviews, but every 10th participant was asked to provide urine specimen so that we also look biologically at results we had from the interview and have a cross validation of results. So participants provided urine samples and they were tested through human drugs, especially for the 6 most important illicit. And results were also sent for confirmation, for quantitative confirmation at Huye Isanje Rehabilitation Center using mass spectrometry immunoassay techniques. And we found that results are almost the same. And for instance, for the test for cannabis interview, it was 5.3%. And for using urine test, the results were 5.58. So it's a bit higher. There are people who sometimes can hide, but they are a bit comparable. And it is the same for heroin, 0.5% from tests, biological tests, while it is 0.2% from interviews. So we found that the results are almost similar, and through biological tests, we did not find any single participant having amphetamine or methamphetamine, and participant who took cocaine, it was not proved through biological means because they took it more than 3 weeks back. The next slide. In conclusion, we can say that looking at the results we had, it's important to have intervention targeting adolescents because it starts earlier. If the onset age is the middle adolescence, we need to start earlier. It is important to reinforce major reducing availability and supply because you have fewer rates for unavailable or difficult to access drugs. It's important to work hand in hand the Ministry of Health and MINEDIC, because majority of youth, 90% are at school, and I think it's important also to highlight and comment the work that Damasen and Nabed, they are doing. They started, I think, last year supporting mental health activities, a school-based program, so that they can address such a problem through prevention. And the next and last slide also recommend to take into consideration other factors that are highlighted, especially family factors. Family in conflict children from family in conflict had higher risk of using substances, and it's also important to address both substance use and
speakers, Dr. Jean Damasen, Dr. James, Dynamo, please to the stage. And so we'll open the floor for any questions. I can share the microphone so you can ask questions to all of the panelists, or you can ask to someone in particular. Please, any questions?
Good afternoon. I'm called Esther. I'm the CEO and founder of IGIHE Africa, a gender and health integrated center. I hold a bachelor's degree in general nursing and a master's degree in gender and development from the University of Rwanda. Our project deals with mental health, reproductive health, maternal health, but from a deconstructive and transformative perspective approach, which starts from the early childhood care, so that children grow aware of all these issues. And we are experienced in HIV prevention, maternal health promotion, adolescent care, and also nutrition for the population at different ages. So I have questions. First, I would like to thank all the presenters, be it those from different organizations, but also the researchers. I'm so much happy with all the research that have been carried out, and I would like to thank you for this great work, because we need this information, we need the statistics to base on to improve the healthcare services, both in prevention and curative. So my first question goes to Dr. Jean Damasen. It's about, I'll first talk about the mental health issues that we talked about, that you told us about. There are a lot of factors behind these issues, and they are rising when we base on the available reports. We have a lot of issues coming up. Mental health, it's about, and with COVID-19, I think the situation became worse. And I would like to ask about, I didn't hear about these factors that are behind the rise of these issues, especially in relation to gender differences, because we had like female higher than men. What could be the factors behind these differences? How about the education levels and also the areas, like rural areas and urban areas, because all these factors can call for different interventions in these areas and also to the target population. My second question also goes to the second presenter about the, also I think I have to address it also to Mr. Jean Damascene. As we all know that the societies are made up of men and women, girls and boys, and we heard that the mental services that are available are not visited. There are people aware of these services, but they are not visiting these services. And this is a problem because most of the times there is lack of these services. But now if they are available and they're not visited, it's another call for other interventions. And I would like to ask, what are the strategies to involve both genders, like especially men, because we know African countries, men are the leaders of the families, they are head of the decision-making in families, and what are the roles of these decision-making men or husbands in families, both to their spouses and also their children, to access these mental services? How are we calling them as part of the programs? Then another question, my last one. My last one goes to Dinamo and Francois. I don't know if I'm recalling very well. Yes, it's about, there was a call of policymakers, researchers, and yes, different people. And what is your view about the role of the family? Because I didn't hear the call of families where these youth are born and grown. And I think it's where children are born, and this is where early childhood education is carried out. And if we leave these families behind, mothers and the parents, I don't think we'll be successful. So I think this was about that, but still I had the age groups with the research, Francois and Darius, Mr. Francois and Darius. I was wondering why primary children are not part of this research. Because when we read different research reports, we hear children from 9 years, yes, they are having these teen pregnancies, exposed to risks, different sexual and reproductive health risks. But it's like it started from 18 years, 14 years, I think. But there are some other years below that. And this gives very alerting information that these children that we call young in the primary levels have a lot of information. They're accessing a lot of information from different areas, especially these dropouts, school dropouts and street children around the community. So they are getting a lot of information, and they are growing with this information, exposing them to all these problems. So what are the strategies also to introduce these systems on the ground? And lastly, how are we disseminating these research findings to the community so that they also get aware of these alarming results for individual and collective interventions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there more questions? Yes, please, I'll come to you. So we'll try to restrict, they are all very good questions, but we'll try to restrict 1 or 2 questions per person.
Don't worry, I will be brief. First, thank you to the speakers. It was very interesting. It was very great. Thank you so much. In fact, my question came from from what Dr. James said about the youth who are moving from cannabis to drugs that are easily available at pharmacy. So, yeah, it questioned myself because I say, which drugs are you talking about, and is this phenomenon is documented somewhere? And from this statement, I would like to ask Professor Darius and the team, because when we designed the study on prevalence of drug and substance abuse, we didn't think about this possibility. So my question is to the team, should we have added those substances in our study? And maybe when we will repeat the study next time to evaluate our program activities, maybe we should include those drugs if it is documented somewhere. And by the end, I am Veronique Zinen, and I am working for Enabel and the Barame project and supporting all those research. And thank you so much. It was very interesting again. Thanks. I hope I was brief.
Thank you so much. Let me take one more question, and then we'll go to the panel.
Thank you very much for all presenters. I first want to ask all presenters about the needed support to families with children who are engaging themselves in those alcohol substance abuse, because mostly it is really a family burden and challenge, and can itself, as Dr. Darius presented, that it can generate from family conflict, but also it can also be a factor to family conflict when they were not there, because in our context, when children are not behaving in the right way, both parents start looking who may be triggering the behavior, either the father, either the mother, or either the grandfamily. And in our context, mental health has its particular stigma context. It is very hard to even speak to a friend when your child is not behaving properly, especially in terms of mental health. So how can we be supportive, everyone, but having a national strategy which is supporting to family? The second question is about the accessibility. Yesterday we were presenting about universal coverage, but in terms of mental health, there is still a huge cost going to those rehabilitation centers who are currently available. So when they start thinking that the only available support would be the health center and Ndera, where the Mutual will be working, families start to think like God's help will be the only one resource to go to, because they can't afford the cost of those rehabilitation centers. I want to also to recognize the presence of Professor Darius, my former supervisor and lecturer at the University of Rwanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll not repeat the questions, I think, but if you would miss something, I can always ask the question again. Can I ask Dr. Jean Damascene, maybe you can answer us first.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question, but also thank you for the insight. I think when you were elaborating your questions, describing the question, for me, you gave the answer, you helped me to answer the questions. Because when we conducted those studies, we had what we call research questions. And I may believe most of you conducted the research. And the research is from question. And even the good research leave many questions. Meaning, most of you do the question that you raised. As I said, when I was presenting, we need many other researches to answer properly your questions. For example, when you ask me why you say female are the most affected, about education, about rural and the urban area. What I can say now will be as my opinion. So, one of the objectives of the presentation today, it was to request and to motivate you and the others to explore those questions. Is part of further research. Maybe let me give my opinion, which I believe will not be taken as research finding. I believe mental health, the mental health problem in Rwanda are much related to the history of our country. With regard to female, you will find that female were most affected by genocide, and those problems related to genocide. Those are my points, but I believe I will not be mistaken if I say those things are related to that, including drug abuse that we are discussing now are much related to our history. Let me thank you because you answered the question that you raised. From Dr. I think you asked about the. I'm not going to answer for James, but maybe the all drug that we know, which are available, I think until now were not investigated. For example, when people, we didn't even think about those medications like Valium, which are most, we found they are most used. Maybe they can also taken as drug, which are illicit, and some people they are using those kind of drugs. I think the last intervention was not a question. Rather, I take it as an answer to the question that was raised by the first participant, because those access or low use of our health facility, as she said, is related to stigma. There is many kinds of stigma, including individual stigma, which related to the patient. Patients are not able now to disclose that they have mental issues. That is even why we found those people, before they get to our service, they use many other informal strategies, including consulting those religion healers, consulting the traditional healers, before they come to our health facility. Another kind of stigma is a social stigma. They are discriminated by by the community, including the families. When a family is having a member who is experiencing a mental disorder, even they can't recognize that they are a member of the family. Myself, I was working at Ndera, as you said. I used to found a family who brought the patient at the hospital. When you said, who is this patient? A member of the family could say, is someone who I found on the street. When it is his brother, even his parent, and he don't want to recognize that mental issue is like another health issue. Another kind of, which is very big, of stigma, is stigma related to institutions. That is why before we take a decision to integrate and decentralize the mental health, you will see that every patient from everywhere was brought to Ndera, even for simple mental issue. Now, we are happy that every health facility in this country is able to treat a mental issue. Now, as I'm talking now, maybe you don't know that in health center, we have 90% almost of health center having psychologists or mental health nurses. When you go to the district hospital, you have all district hospital having mental health unit with 2 or more psychologists and 2 or more mental health nurses specialized. When you go to the referral hospital, as Ndera, CHK, Kanombe, CHIB, and so on, you have psychiatrists. As I'm talking now, in the country we have almost 12, and this year we will have 15 psychiatrists and more than 3,000 of psychologists. Many of them, they are working in private and organization, and the others, they are working in our health facilities. And another kind of stigma is related to health providers. And health providers, they think they don't have skills to manage mental issues. Not because they don't have skills, but they don't want to care for those complicated, those people who are taken as discriminated, as people who don't deserve care. Only that. I used it to found people who transferred patient just when the patient is still in the car, and said, please bring me the transfer form for this man, this Musazi. Because they don't want to bring that Musazi in the office just to examine, to assess before he transfer. That is a big issue. Otherwise, Service exists, and we believe they are enough. We need you as people, we need you as family, we need you as a community, we need you as an organization, civil society, and to help the government to increase that awareness, to fight that stigma, so that the people, they can use the existing health facilities. Lastly, we need also in our policy to change or to add other strategies. We used to wait the patient to come to the health facility. This is old technique. We want now to move to the patient instead to wait the patient. You know why? Depression will say to the patient, don't go to the health facility. Don't to socialize. Don't we need to go to leave our office and to go to the patient. That is one. Another thing, we need what we call the mobile clinic, a moving hospitals. The moving hospitals. Another strategy, again, we should include technology in our strategy to care for those people who don't want to come, who don't want to destroy, using technology, what we call telemedicine or psychiatry or e-mental health. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean Damascene. And I hope, and I think we all hope together, this decentralization that we have been talking about since many years in Rwanda, of bringing mental health services up to the level of the health centers, that will now start having an impact on the treatment gap, as we saw before in the presentation from Dr. Jean Damascene. The timing of our session is over, unfortunately, but I'm gonna ask, there is 3 more questions that have not been addressed, so I'll ask the panel to answer really quickly, but I think it's important for these questions to be addressed, so thank you for your patience. The first question, and I'm gonna ask one of you, you can choose who takes the answer, was one question to Dinamo and Francois on the role of the family. And yes, please.
I thank you, Dr. Stefan, Professor Stefan, sorry. And my sister, I thank you very much for the question raised up regarding the family interventions regarding alcohol abuse, especially in young people. I commend your question and the comment, saying that we are not lifting family behind, because we didn't know that the contribution of the family for the protection of the child and the young people is enormous. And I think that every strategies should go with family involvement, because every scenario of drug abuse, any kind of substances, it was explored that it starts from home. When the family is engaged, when there is a positive parenting, there is a way of protection of a child and young people from harmful use of alcohol. The second question was related to how we are sharing these findings and dissemination. This is one of the strategies, having this kind of opportunity to share our findings with you and make sure that you are commenting about them. This is it. But also you may find some important documentation regarding substances and drug abuse from our website, Rwanda Biomedical Center. Not only that, we are planning also to disseminate these research and findings through different web and journals. So anyway, I think that when I see someone interested in asking such kind of questions regarding mental health, substance abuse, addictions, I feel that all of us, we are just concerned, and let's bring together this kind of umbrella and make sure that we are protecting our young people against the harmful use of alcohol. The third issue to talk about it is that the government is trying to collect some data information regarding how we can just develop a national harmful control policy. We are just on a data collection step, whereby we are just making sure that all of us, all of you, everyone in the community should be engaged in elaboration of that policy, which will provide for us some guidelines and other recommendations to who is going to do this, how we can do this. I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to add on what Dinamo has said about the two elements. One is about family law and support in prevention and social reintegration of the drug users. I will be concrete in terms of actions, because after we had that results from the assessment, in Enabel, we are partnering with a local NGO, which has been assigned to support the mental health division and in preventing and making awareness about drug and substance abuse within the 7 districts of Rwanda, where we are operating, but also developing a social reintegration strategy for those former drug users. Among the strategy we are focusing on is that we think that the family is a key pillar of social reintegration, and we are planning for a peer support for the parents who have the experience of drug use among their children. So there is a plan to have those parents being engaged in supporting each other's discussing and experience exchange, so that at least they come from that stigma and they can help the children to seek for services. Then about the dissemination, it's very important that we share such information with all stakeholders. And at ours, we have that kind of sharing information with stakeholders, especially the districts, because the interventions are targeting community within district. Then we had already started sharing the results, these alarming results or these recommendations which has been drawn. We have already been sharing with specific district data, because data are disaggregated by district. Then we sit and discuss with district authorities, which are redrawing activities to sustain that prevention and the social integration. And globally, we think also to, as Dinamo said, such bigger events, we try to share such results so that people use the information in drawing, in informing their decision in terms of planning to support the country in preventing and reintegrating the drug users. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Darius, there were 2 questions for you. The first one is, why did you only start 14 years old? Because the young children, when they start, it's even more problematic. And then there was the question from Veronique on these other products that we were not aware about at the beginning of the study. So how do you look at that?
Thank you so much. I'll try to be brief. Why 14 years? I think Francois responded a bit to the question, because the research conducted around the world are proving that it starts at around adolescent period, and but it doesn't mean before 14 it is not possible. It happens, but this is from research. Second, the focus of the project was around adolescent and young adults, but it is also possible to have intervention targeting the younger population. Second, I think it's the interesting question from Veronica. Dr. Veronica can briefly take it as a recommendation, first for research, to look at what it means, and second, for intervention. I think in Rwanda it's clear that there are psychotropic medications are not provided without a medical prescription. But in practice, it doesn't mean that this is not happening. And from a clinical experience, we had people being dependent on diazepam, morphine, for instance. There are not many. We have to say that. In the previous study we did, we asked those questions, and you had something like 0.1%. It's really low. I would not say that's something that is massive, but we need to take care of it. The last question from my colleague first, I think, thank you so much for being there and for the work you did. I think she's work in neonatology and start prevention area with families and children. And I would just say that equal to what Ada said, the family is an important foundation for things that we achieve in our life. And there are so many interventions to be done at this level. My last comment would be about the potential that we have, for instance, from this school-based intervention. If we take an example of a class of 30 students at secondary school level, there are, among 30 students, there are probably 1 or 2 students that are having their result dropping dramatically, or others that are not attending regularly, others that are reported to be from families with violence, others start to be known that they have used substances. If there are 5 students, and having like what NABED and RBC are trying to do, supporting school-based mental health, they can not only support these at-risk students, but they can have an opportunity also to provide care, provide support to parents, and from the school even link them to structure that are available at the health center level. So I think a lot have been done. If we are having 508 health centers in Rwanda and having at a health center level a mental health professional, it means that the government is doing also efforts. It's not easy to hire 500 people working for mental health. It means that it's a priority for the government. It's also a priority for NGOs, local association, and ABED. And I think the work will continue to improve the mental well-being. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Darius, for those answers. We have reached the end of this session. I thank you all for your attention and for joining this session. As you see, mental health in Rwanda is an area of great importance where a lot of effort is being done through the different stakeholders in this field. I think we are ahead in mental health in Rwanda compared to the region because of our history. But as we clearly see, there is still a lot of work ahead. And so we count on you. We also count on the next generation of students to keep on moving this effort and working in this area. I want to thank all of and I invite you to thank them together with me, all of our panelists for their excellent expositions and answering of the questions. Thank you so much. Thank you.